Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let me turn this down here so I can hear. Thank you so much for joining on today. If you are in here, go ahead on and hit the share. Let somebody else know that we are live. And we'll be getting started in just a second. Let me know who you are. If you are in the room, let me know who you are. Tell me where you're joining me from. Hello, IG. Hello, Indeed. Hello, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button so that you can be notified automatically when we go live. Subscribe and hit the notifications bell, and you'll be notified when we go live. If you are on Facebook and you're not following us, what you doing with your life? Like, follow us, and hit the share button. Let somebody else know we are live. We're so glad to be here with you all on today. My voice is slowly starting to come back. It's been, kind of struggling this week, but it is slowly coming back. And I'm at least able to hold somewhat of a little tune, because I could hold nothing. Like, I'll open my mouth and it would be like, but now I'm able to at least hold some kind of a little tune. So it's coming back slowly, but it's coming back. So how are you guys on today? Woo! So today we're going to be talking about how to set boundaries with a toxic person. So this past week, the last 2 days, we've been talking about what it's like to be in a relationship with someone who is toxic, or subtle signs that you look out for when you're in a relationship and the person is toxic. I said that about my voice and now it's want to act up. No, not today. Get it together. So we've been talking about that subtle signs that you want to be on the lookout for in a toxic relationship, or signs that the relationship is toxic or that the person is toxic. So if you haven't checked out our last two videos when we've talked about that, hey, when we talked about that, make sure you go check out those videos because they are posted. I leave them up on YouTube. I definitely leave them up wherever platform I'm streaming from. I leave them up because I know a lot of people go back and watch the replays. So go check out the replays from the last 2 weeks. The last 2 days about subtle signs of a toxic relationship. And then today we're going to be talking about how to set boundaries with a toxic person. So make sure you go ahead on and hit share, tag somebody in, and let them know that we are live. If you ever want to know how you can support a small business, this is one way you can support a small business, and that's by sharing their content. We never know. I gave that little spill on yesterday. You never know who will come across this, who will need it at the exact moment that they need it. I was scrolling through my comments on Instagram yesterday and saw that I posted a reel and someone was like, I really needed this today. And so you just never know who you will reach just by you sharing. Just by you sharing. So hit share. I love you guys. For those of you who have already shared, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys for coming and joining me during your lunch hour. For some, and some it may not be your lunch hour. It may be at night when you're watching this, depending on what part of the world you're in. But however and wherever you're joining me from, I don't take it for lightly. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the engagement that I get. I go back and I try to read the comments for those that I miss when I'm live. I always make sure that I go back and look at the comments so that I'm not missing people's comments in real time. So I love missing someone's comments. So I always go back and check the comments. So are y'all ready? Hit some thumbs up, some likes, give me some hearts if you are ready for us to get into the topic on today of how to set boundaries with a toxic person. Okay, so if you were with us the last couple days, then I started off by giving just some tangible things, or some things that you can do when it comes down to setting boundaries, or the importance of setting boundaries if you are in a relationship with a toxic person. And so one thing that I said about setting boundaries with someone who is toxic is that the main way, like if you want to ever safeguard you going into a toxic relationship, or you in a toxic relationship right now and you're trying to figure out how can you maintain your peace, or what do you need to do in order to move forward? The best thing that you can work on right now is learning how to set boundaries, and then healing from any past wounds that you may have. Because what typically happens is that, how people usually end up in toxic relationships is because they have some kind of wound that is there, or some kind of thing, some kind of trauma they may not have addressed, or some kind of things that have happened to them in their past that really calls for them to attract people that are toxic. And so that is the reason why we push so much. If you're working with a therapist, or if you come across some certain videos that are very similar to these, you understand when we say go hire a therapist, or go to therapy, or go hire you someone to help you get the healing that you need, that it is vital for you to do that. Because once the wounds are there, if they're unhealed, you begin to look at people and view people through the wounds that are in your heart. And so it's so important that you do what you need to do, whether that's hire a therapist, a coach, or a counselor, or do whatever it is that you need to do in order to get the healing that you need, so that you can properly view people through the correct lens. Not through a wounded lens, not through a lens of abandonment or rejection, but through a healed lens, but through a healed heart. That way you're not attracting people who are toxic. But once you attract people who are toxic, one thing about it is the main way that you can start safeguarding yourself, if you're going into another relationship and you know that you tend to attract people who are toxic, one main thing that you can do is learn how to set boundaries. And so we'll dive a little bit about dive a little bit into setting boundaries. I'm not going to give you guys everything because I'm working on a little thing that I want to give you. I've already did a book on boundaries that I just need to publish and put out there. I'm just kind of doing some adjustments to it right now. And so I'm not going to give you all everything. I'm just going to give you a little tidbit. But for my counseling, my clients that I work with in my coaching business, I tend to walk them through how to set boundaries. I walk them through how to set boundaries. And so if you are looking for an opportunity to work with someone on how you can do this, then I'll offer you something toward the end. So stick around. Okay. So what are boundaries? What are boundaries? We talk about boundaries a lot. So I want to give some definition to what boundaries are. If you don't have a pen and a paper, then you may want to grab a pen and a paper so you can know exactly what it is that I'm saying, and you can go back and pinpoint and say, no, this is what she said on her notes, and be able to implement what you know just by watching these videos. Boundaries are designed to strengthen your relationship, not damage it. That is one of the misconceptions that we think when we're talking about boundaries, that boundaries mean that you're putting people outside, put on the outside of you, or you're putting up a guard or a rail or some kind of boundary between you and that person that is meant to push them out. That's absolutely false. Boundaries are not meant to break down your relationship or to damage your relationship. The whole purpose of boundaries is to strengthen your relationship. I was reading an article about Psychology Today, and one of the things that Psychology Today set up when it comes down to boundaries is that the whole point of having boundaries is so that you have a clear idea of where you stop and where other people begin. That is the point of boundaries. It's not to damage you. It's not to damage it. It's not to damage the relationship. It's so that you have a clear idea of where you stop and then where another person begins. So it's not about keeping them out. It's more about defining who you are and what you think and what you need and your expectations, and also aligning what you want, what you think, your boundaries, your morals, your expectations, aligning them with another person. Because if you guys are not aligned, if you find they don't respect your boundaries and they don't believe what similar to what you believe, they don't have to believe exactly what you believe, but they need to be in a ballpark of what you believe. They need to understand that no is a no, and they need to understand that you need your time together, just like you need your time with them, just like you need your time away from them. And they need to be able to respect that, but they also need to understand it to a point to where they're also implementing these things in their own life. That lets you know whether or not they're healthy. And if they're not doing these things, if they're not implementing boundaries in their own life, they don't have boundaries in their own life, then that, my friend, is a red flag. So boundaries is not about keeping them out, but it is about helping you align yourself with other people. And particularly when we're talking about partners or friendships or careers, like, you want to make sure that you're not investing your time and your energy into people who are only going to drain you, or that are going to be pulling from you. And you can't pour for somewhere that's empty. It doesn't work that way. So there are different types of boundaries, and we'll get into some of those today. There are different type of boundaries because I think I've looked at some that were like 6. We'll cover at least 6 of them today, but there are 7. I've saw some that had 7 and 8 different areas that you want to set boundaries. So there are different types of areas, and you want to make sure that you're setting boundaries in each of these areas, particularly for those who don't know how to set boundaries. So let's go here. Here's the thing about boundaries too. We learn boundaries from the people that raised us. Boundaries are learned. We don't come here automatically knowing how to set boundaries, no more than we come here knowing how to use the bathroom. So boundaries are something that we learn from other people. So a lot of times what I find is when you see people who are let people run all over them and they don't know how to say no, you can almost trace that back to something that they learned growing up. And it's something about seeing boundaries in real time. And even though, in real time, you don't know that it's boundaries. All you know is this is how your mama acted, or this is how the person that raised you acted, or this is how they handle conflict, or this is, how they handle relationships. That's what you're recording as a child. So you learn boundaries from the people who reared you or who raised you. So if they wasn't clear on how to set boundaries, if they felt like pouring into other people, pouring and continuously pouring and pouring and pouring made them who they are, then that's what you know. And your identity is going to be wrapped into pouring into other people. Even though they may mistreat you, they step on you, they treat you like you're nobody, but that's you. All I know is that you keep pouring, you keep going, you keep doing, and you let the Lord handle it. That's what you know, because that's what you've seen. But that does not mean that it is healthy, because that worked for somebody else. That may not work for you. That's probably not going to work for you, because it's not okay for you to allow people to just continuously to mistreat, misuse, abuse you, and then you stick around. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. So the impact of boundaries, something else we want to talk about with boundaries, is that boundaries actually can be on a scale. There's no one clear-cut way to set boundaries. There's no clear-cut way. It's just not, it's not going to happen. Why? Because everyone is different. We're all different. We all need something differently. When we're setting boundaries, we all need something differently. Hi. We all need something differently. And so what you need and what your expectations are not going to be the same expectations that I have and what I need. So boundaries are really personal, and they're going to vary from person to person. So I say they actually exist on a scale. And so how you can evaluate the kind of boundaries you have right now is whether or not you're very closed off when it comes to people, or whether or not you're just kind of, people come into your life and you just kind of automatically trust them. Well, I mean, we know that's not good, because trust is earned. Trust is earned over time. Trust is earned by you seeing consistency. Trust is earned by you evaluating a person's behavior. And then being too closed off, well, you don't get to know the person at all. You don't even give yourself the opportunity to even get to know that person. You automatically may come in, like we talked about yesterday, with trust issues. And so you don't give that person the opportunity to fail. You don't even really want to know whether or not y'all, your values lined up. So your boundaries may actually be a little bit more closed off, and you may not even attempt to go into a relationship. Like, you cool with the same crew that you've been having since, however long. You cool with that. And you don't even allow for other people to come into your life, because you don't even want them to disappoint you. You don't want them to hurt you. You don't want them to abuse you or misuse you, because you've seen that done before. You've seen your mom do that, or your father do that, or an aunt that you admire, or someone that you admire do that, and they were mistreated. And so you may go to the opposite end of the spectrums, and your boundaries are too rigid or too closed off. And so ideally, what healthy boundaries are right in the middle, where you're able to allow people to come in, but you don't trust them yet enough for them to just come in and you pour your heart out and you give your heart away. Those things happen over time. And so a lot of times what we find when people are struggling with setting boundaries is that they grew up in chaotic households, or they grew up with caregivers who were inconsistent, or caregivers who were too overbearing. So when you're thinking about boundaries, think about where you learned where you learned your boundaries from. Where are you going wrong with setting boundaries in your life? And where did you learn that from? I'm giving y'all some gems, like right there. That's a gem right there. That's a gem. I hope you wrote that down. That's a gem. So let's go into some types of boundaries, some different types of boundaries. Y'all, let me tell you this too about boundaries. People who are toxic don't like boundaries. They don't like boundaries. They don't like boundaries. And so, I'll be working with a client and they'll come back and say, oh, well, they did such and such and such and they acting worse and they said such and such. And it's almost like they try to make me feel guilty, for even asking for what I want or for setting this boundary with them, or they started acting up even worse. Toxic people don't like boundaries. They don't like boundaries. They don't. They don't like boundaries. So if you're going into setting boundaries thinking that they're going to approve, thinking that they're going to automatically adjust, and that you're already headed down the wrong road, because they won't. They'll probably get worse. Things will probably seem worse. They'll probably up the ante a little bit. They may try to make you feel guilty. Do you remember those signs that we talked about yesterday? Yeah, they'll probably do all of those even worse. But the whole goal, remember, when you're dealing with a toxic person, we're talking about manipulation, we're talking about controlling behaviors. And so the whole goal for them is to get you to go back to the person that you were, to get you to let your guards down so they can continue to do and behave how they've been behaving in the past. And so the goal for setting boundaries, or the thing that you will have to hold on to, is that I am doing this for me. Can I get somebody to type that? Like, I am doing this for me. Boundaries is not about them. It is about me doing this to me. It is about me guarding my heart. It is about me guarding my emotional state, my mental state. It is about me making sure that I am setting myself up to have healthier relationships in the future. This is about me. And it is absolutely okay for you to start the relationship or to start setting the boundaries thinking about you. You should go into any relationship first thinking about you. And I know that is contrary to what we're taught, because we're taught to, oh, you should think about the other person. We should think about the other person. And you should, to a degree, but you should go into it thinking about you. Does this line up with who you are? Does this line up with where you want to go in the future? Does being with this person line up with how you want to be treated? It is absolutely okay for you to prioritize you going into any type of relationship. So let's go over 6 signs. There are 6 signs or 6 areas that you want to begin setting boundaries in. I'm going to go over some of those. So the first one is physical boundaries. Physical boundaries involve how you protect your space. How do you protect your space? How much time do you need alone? Like, I'm not an introvert. Like, any introverts? Like, if anybody introvert out there, introvert, extrovert, which one are you? Introvert, extrovert. I'm like dead in the middle. Like, I'm one of those ones, like, I absolutely love people. I love being around people, especially if they're, some good environment, positive people. Like, I love being in those type of environments. It's encouraging, and we can laugh and be goofy, because I love to be goofy. I'm goofy. Like, in my heart of hearts, like, I'm goofy. Like, I'll laugh at. It doesn't take a whole lot to make me laugh, because I'm goofy. So I'm right in the middle. Like, I like to be around people, but I also love my time alone. I love it. Like, I process things better when I'm alone and when I'm writing and when I'm just kind of in my own space, and I got my music going, or I'm sitting in complete quiet and I'm just thinking about my thoughts. That is a thing. Like, you can think about your thoughts, y'all. Like, you can think about your thoughts, and you should think about your thoughts, because how else are you going to know if your thoughts are not going good? Like, if they're negative, like, how else are you going to know if you're not thinking about your thoughts? So I love both realms. Like, I love to be in my space, but I also love people. So physical boundaries is how you protect your space. How do you protect your body? It includes resting, like, and eating. Like, what do you eat? What are you doing to take care of yourself? Like, what are you doing to rest? How do you know when you need to rest? You'll be surprised at the number of people that do not know when they need to rest. They don't know. They walk around irritable, overwhelmed, piling things up on their plate, continuing to push forward. Because I know a lot of people like that, just keep going, and never stopping to rest. Well, rest is a boundary. Rest is a whole boundary. And it's also a form of self-care. But how do you know that if you haven't sat with yourself to be able to put these things in place? So number 1, physical boundaries. Then the next one is emotional or mental boundaries. That's how you protect. You protect how you feel. You're looking at your emotions. What makes you sad? What makes you happy? What makes you angry? What are your triggers? Those are emotional boundaries that you put in place. And it also includes this one that I want you to understand about emotional and mental boundaries. It also includes not taking on the responsibility for other people's feelings and emotions. Like, you may be especially with toxic people, they tend to blow up because, it's a form of emotional manipulation and control. So if they blow up, I've known people, who apologize for another person's behavior. You can't apologize for another person's behavior. They need to apologize for their behavior, not you. That's not your place. It's not your place to apologize for someone else's behavior. And so setting those mental and emotional boundaries is you not taking on somebody else's feelings or even someone else's, anxiety. Like there are people that will come in the room and you can feel the tension when they walk in the room. You know that they're carrying stuff when they walk in the room. And some people is more prevalent than others. Like I've known people who can walk in the room and just by their presence alone, people literally start moving to accommodate them. They literally start moving to accommodate them. Yeah, no, we don't take on other people's feelings. We don't take on other people's feelings. So you can feel it and not respond. You can notice it, but not respond. And with toxic people, you have to get into the habit of not responding. Not responding. Okay, so that was emotional boundaries. Number 3 is sexual boundaries. That is your right to consent. I did a video not long ago about sexual assault inside of a marriage because a lot of people don't think that, that a partner can, like your spouse can sexually assault you or sexually violate you, but they can. They absolutely can. Like being married doesn't mean everything goes or that anything goes. It does not mean that. The marriage bed being undefiled does not mean that everything goes. It absolutely does not. It's at the comfort level of the person. It's at the consent of the other person. And they're not to be pressured into anything. Or you can't, guilt trip them into getting your needs met. And we're talking about intimacy, sexual intimacy right now. So you can't pressure a person into doing something that you want them to do because you want them to do it. Like it doesn't work that way. It all involves consent, and consent is related to respect. Because if I respect you, if I value you, then I'm not gonna pressure you into doing something that you don't want to do, or I'm not gonna violate you and take advantage of you in a vulnerable situation. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait till you're awake and wait till you're aware of what's going on. And I'm going to consent. I'm going to wait on your consent. I'm going to wait on your approval. I'm not just going to take it because I'm in the mood. It ain't how that work. We can't do that. We can't disrespect people's bodies like that. So it's a sexual boundary. And then number 4 is financial and material boundaries, which protects your financial resources and your possession, which means can't nobody just come up in my house and take anything that they want to take just because they want to take it. Or just because you're my family member, you can't just, you're not obligated to you're not entitled to my stuff just because you're my family member. Like I'm not entitled to you just because we're kin to each other or just because we're married to one another. Like, no, there are still financial resources and possessions that require boundaries. So it's a right to spend your money as you choose, which means nobody can control how you choose your money. But a marriage, or how you spend your money, but in marriage you should be in agreement. That's respectful. You should be in agreement about your finances. You should be in an agreement. But if y'all ain't in no marriage, y'all, okay, because I'm not gonna get off on one of my tangents because this live is gonna end up being over an hour if I get off on one of my tangents. If you're not in a relationship, why they trying to control? You're not married to them. Why they controlling what you spend your money on anyway? What? That's a whole boundary. You ain't got no say so about how I spend my money because we are not in a contract with one another. We are not in a vow with one another. We're not in a legal contract with one another that was made before God. So you have no say so about how I choose to spend the money that I make. None. Zero. Zilch. Okay. Number 5. Hi. Number 5 is a time boundary. It's how you spend your time. I said this a little bit earlier when I was talking about boundaries, especially with time boundaries, is in a relationship, in a healthy relationship, you need time alone and you need time together. You need to prioritize time together if you're planning on the relationship being healthy. But for toxic relationships, that they may be a little bit more controlling of your time, more demanding of your time. But if you learning how to set healthy boundaries with them, you protect your time and you say, this is what I need at this moment. This is what I need, and I'm prioritizing this for this moment. I'm setting this boundary regardless of how big of a fuss you're going to put up or how much you try to guilt trip me. This is what I need for this moment because it's what I need, and I don't have to explain that. I don't have to explain that. You don't have to explain what you need to anyone. It's what you need. You just need to say, this is what I need, period. Point blank, period. This is what I need. So you're protecting your time by only agreeing to do things that you want to do. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. No matter how much they try to convince you or peer press you or push you into doing it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. That's the beauty of being an adult. You don't have to do things that you're not comfortable doing. And then the last one is an intellectual boundary, which involves your ability to respect and honor your own ideas and your own thoughts and your own creativity. Being able to honor and respect those things regardless of how someone else feels about them. So if I come to you with an idea and you shoot it down, well, you shooting it down is really not about me. It's more so about you being, It's more so about you than it is about me. Because that doesn't mean that my idea wasn't a good one just because you didn't approve of it. It doesn't mean that my creativity and the things that I have dreamed of doing is not important just because you don't approve of it, just because another person don't approve of it. And so being in a toxic relationship, hopefully in setting those boundaries, you learn the value of moving forward, whether or not that person agrees to it. And I think this also applies to the dreams and visions that you have for your life. There are people that, I think we talked about this the other day, that literally will put their lives on the back burner because someone else they're in a relationship with don't agree. Well, that's an unhealthy relationship because they should respect your dreams and visions just like you should respect theirs. And you don't put your dreams, your visions, your hopes, your plans, your careers, we don't put those things on the back burner for the sake of someone else unless for a period of time you guys are in agreement. I'm going to take these 2 years to focus on this. All I need you to do is, support me by holding down this. And then after these 2 years, I'm going to support you and you go forth and push your dreams and your visions and all of that. That's a mutually respected, thank you, Dr. Zoe, a mutually respected relationship. But for toxic people, remember guys, they do not like boundaries. They do not like boundaries. So there's no need of you expecting that they're going to agree with you. They're not going to, they may not support you. They even really, really toxic people may even try to sabotage some of these things. They may sabotage them. And then at some point you have to decide whether or not you can tolerate this. And part of your boundary may be that you walk away. And it's okay. If you need to walk away, then guess what that is? That's an emotional boundary. That's an emotional and a mental boundary that you need to set for yourself. And you learn how to own and take care of your own feelings, your own emotions, your own thoughts, and what you want, need, and desire. And it's completely okay to do that, whether you're married or whether you're in a relationship. So I hope I've kind of cleared up what boundaries are for you. I know we can kind of get really deep when it comes down to boundaries. Some people just don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. If you've never been taught what boundaries are, you just don't know. So I hope that I've cleared some things up for you on today. Thank you so much for joining me. And go back and watch the videos. We have had a video on the subtle signs of toxic relationship. This feeds right behind that. So these concepts that we're talking about feed into one another. So go back and check out those other two videos. If you're on Instagram, they're right there on Instagram. Indeed, whatever platform you're looking at, then those videos are there. And if you cannot find them, guess where they always are? They're always on YouTube. You can always check out our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell while you're there so that you can be aware of when we release new videos. I love you guys so much. Let me check and see if I have any questions, because I get caught up when I'm teaching. I just kind of go in and I'm like, let me stop, check in with you guys, and see if you have any questions. Does anyone have any questions on something that I may have mentioned, or any thing about boundaries that you want to know while I'm here? Because tomorrow we're moving on, and we're talking about, we got a really exciting topic that I want to talk about, because I've been kind of hitting at it all week, is how do you let go of a toxic marriage? Yeah, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I think, it's a perfect Thursday topic, but it's also a topic that we need to talk about, so that we can stop guilting people into staying in marriages and making them feel bad about getting out of marriages that are toxic. So we'll talk about that on tomorrow. Let me check my comments. Thank y'all so much for sharing. For those of you who shared, I appreciate your support so much. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. So come on back tomorrow. Hey, copycat. Come on back tomorrow, and we will talk about how do you let go of a toxic marriage. I love you guys. See you later.